It all begins on a night of torrential rain. In the shadows of a narrow, secluded alley, two figures emerge. One of them, caught completely off guard by the other's presence, reacts with sudden panic. But in the blink of an eye, it's over. One man is slammed to the ground in excruciating pain. The man behind this brutal takedown? None other than Wu Jiao. Without wasting a second, Wu Jiao hauls the unconscious man back to his secret lair. The scene inside is a nightmare. The victim is strapped tight to a table, his body pierced with countless tubes pumping blood into him. He's paralyzed, forced to lie there and endure whatever hell is coming next. But just as Wu Jiao begins his twisted experiments, the law catches up to him. Prosecutor Yun and a squad of police officers storm the scene, catching him red-handed. You'd expect a man in handcuffs to be terrified, but Wu Jiao has nerves of steel. Facing the hand of justice, he remains eerily nonchalant. With a terrifyingly innocent smile, he actually tries to explain his medical procedures to the officers, as if he's simply treating a patient. Nauseated by his depravity, Yun orders her men to drag him away to the station immediately. As Wu Jiao is escorted out, Yun and her partner survey the horror show he left behind. The room is a grisly sight. Medical instruments caked in dried blood and a freezer emitting a stench so foul it's suffocating. Looking at the evidence, Yun realizes she isn't just dealing with a criminal. She's dealing with a complete psychopath. Meanwhile, sitting calmly in the back of the police cruiser, Wu Jiao overhears a radio report. One of the victims is actually still alive. Instead of showing fear, he remains smug, muttering to himself, "I told you, he's not a victim." The next morning, the police station is a war zone. Reporters have swarmed every entrance, desperate for answers about the gruesome case. Amidst the chaos, a man named Jeffrey is struggling to handle the media pressure. Suddenly, Han Jun appears from the crowd to bail him out. He tells the press to have faith in the police investigation and quickly ushers Jeffrey into a car to escape the frenzy. Once inside the car, Jeffrey is visibly relieved, thanking Han Jun for the timely rescue. But Han Jun isn't in the mood for gratitude. He shuts Jeffrey down with a cold, hard truth. You only walked free because this was your first offense. One more slip-up and you're going straight to prison. Right then, Han Jun's phone pings. He's been summoned to a high-stakes meeting. Han Jun meets with a doctor to discuss a mysterious medical treatment. The doctor lays out the entire procedure, leaving the final decision in Han Jun's hands. Later, standing outside the hospital, Han Jun recounts the meeting to his wife. But when he sees his young daughter's smile, his heart burns with a mix of desperation and guilt. Back at the precinct, Yun enters the interrogation room for her first face-off with Wu Jiao. She grills him about his sick experiments and the human remains found in his freezer. Wu Jiao, unfazed, claims that everything he did was in the name of science. He insists he's developing a miracle cure for terminal illnesses. As for the bodies, Wu Jiao doesn't see himself as a monster. In his twisted mind, the few lives he took are a small price to pay if it means saving millions of others. He is so far gone that he truly believes he is a messiah, not a murderer. Word of the interrogation leaks, and the news spreads like wildfire. As the headlines hit the stands, the public is left in a state of absolute shock and horror. While following the breadcrumbs left by Yun, Min Chul makes a gruesome discovery. A set of skeletal remains, buried deep by Wu Jiao. When he calls it in, the shock is overwhelming. It turns out this isn't an isolated incident. This is just one of 17 victims who fell prey to Wu Jiao's sick and twisted depravity. But here is where the plot thickens. The killer specifically handpicks the man he wants to defend, Han Jun. When the news hits, Han Jun is completely blindsided. Why would a psychopath like this choose him out of the hundreds of elite lawyers available? To settle his confusion, a journalist delivers a cryptic message directly from Wu Jiao. Just mention the name Seguk, and Han Jun will know exactly why. The name Seguk hits Han Jun like a bolt of lightning. After pressing for more details, he learns the devastating truth. Seguk was also a victim who met his end at the hands of Wu Jiao. Realizing there's a much deeper connection here, Han Jun immediately asks the reporter to pull some strings and arrange a private face-to-face meeting. Meanwhile, back at the office, Yun is stunned when her partner breaks the news. Wu Jiao is already meeting with private counsel. Sensing the gravity of the situation, Yun rushes to the director's office. She demands to take full control of the case, determined to see it through to the end. She knows this isn't just your run-of-the-mill murder case, not with a notorious high-stakes lawyer now in the mix. For someone as dedicated to justice as she is, there's no way she's sitting this one out. Finally, the confrontation happens. The second Han Jun lays eyes on Wu Jiao, he loses it. He lunges forward, grabbing the doctor by the collar and demanding answers about Mon's death and the location of the hidden medical treatments. But Wu Jiao is playing a different game. He remains eerily calm, staying one step ahead and calculating Han Jun's every move like a grandmaster at a chessboard. Then Wu Jiao plays his trump card. He mentions Han Jun's daughter, Min Xiao, and hints at what could happen to her. The mere mention of his child leaves Han Jun paralyzed with fear. Once the tension settles, they finally sit down to talk business. Wu Jiao makes a staggering godfather offer. $1 million up front, and another $1 million if Han Jun successfully gets him out of those handcuffs. Even with $2 million on the table, Han Jun doesn't flinch. He fires back with a challenge. What if I just take your money and refuse to represent you? That's when Wu Jiao shows his true colors as a master manipulator. He claims he's already accounted for that, but he insists that once Han Jun meets the people he has cured, Han Jun will be the one chasing him. The common thread between all these patients: they were all suffering from terminal illnesses. Hearing the words miracle cure spoken with such absolute certainty forces Han Jun to look at the psycho doctor in a whole new light. After leaving the precinct, Han Jun and the reporter head out immediately to track down these supposedly cured patients to see if Wu Jiao is a genius or just a world-class liar. Back at the station, Yun and her team are working overtime, digging into the dark corners of the case. When Minchul hands her the full list of victims, Yun notices a shocking pattern. Every single victim has a violent criminal record. It's a moral bombshell. While Wu Jiao's methods are undeniably illegal, from a certain dark perspective, he wasn't just killing people. He was acting as a vigilante hero by taking out the worst of society. Determined to find the truth, Yun heads back into the interrogation room to grill Wu Jiao on where the rest of the bodies are hidden. Once again, Wu Jiao doesn't blink. He stands by his actions with terrifying conviction, insisting that everything he did, every life he took, was a necessary sacrifice for the ultimate advancement of medicine. After failing to get anything useful out of Wu Jiao, Yun is forced to leave the interrogation room empty-handed. But she's not giving up. As she gets into her car, she immediately calls her team to coordinate a massive search for the remaining victims. Meanwhile, Han Jun and the reporter are pounding the pavement, following every lead, no matter how small, to find just one patient Wu Jiao actually saved. But their search is a total bust. Everywhere they go, they're met with nothing but closed doors and shaking heads. Back at the station, the police decide to put Wu Jiao through a polygraph test, but it's a complete waste of time. The lie detector can't catch him because, in his twisted mind, he's a savior. He genuinely believes his mission is to save lives, and he feels absolutely zero remorse for the 17 victims he's already killed. As the results come back inconclusive, the pressure from the public and the media begins to reach a breaking point. Realizing she needs a different approach, Yun swallows her pride and meets with Wu Jiao privately once again. This time, she doesn't grill him about where the bodies are buried. Instead, she asks him about his treatment, how he actually does what he claims to do. Wu Jiao begins to reveal his origin story. It started small. A shriveled, dead houseplant that he somehow brought back to life overnight. Then it was the fish in his tank. Once he'd seen enough results with animals, he moved on to a terrifyingly ambitious goal: human experimentation. He believed that if he succeeded, he would become a living saint. By the end of the conversation, he finally gives up a crucial piece of evidence: the location of the final victim, hidden deep on a mountainside. As Yun and the police swarm the mountain to recover the body, she can't stop thinking about Wu Jiao's offer. He wants her to help him prove his medical theories in court. But just as the police discover the corpse, Han Jun makes a breakthrough of his own. He finds a young boy named Sang Wu, one of the patients Wu Jiao claimed to have fixed. This is where the story of Wu Jiao, the killer with an unshakable savior complex, takes a wild turn. Han Jun can't believe his eyes. He clearly remembers Sang Wu being paralyzed and confined to a wheelchair, but here the boy is, walking around perfectly healthy on his own 2 feet. Suddenly, Wu Jiao's promise, "I can cure your daughter, Min Xiao," starts to sound dangerously real to Han Jun. At the same time, prosecutors confirm that the bodies found on the mountain are exactly where Wu Jiao said they'd be. It becomes clear that he confessed not to get a lighter sentence, but as a bargaining chip. He doesn't want mercy. He just wants the chance to prove to the world in a court of law that his miracle cure is the real deal. However, Yun isn't buying into the hype. To her, he's just a dangerous lunatic. She stays firm, demanding the maximum penalty: the death sentence. Han Jun is caught in an impossible dilemma. As a lawyer, he knows Wu Jiao is a monster, but as a father, he is desperate to find any way to save his daughter. Knowing Han Jun is still skeptical, Wu Jiao tells him one last story, the miracle that happened to him personally. Years ago, when he was just a medical student, he was involved in a horrific car accident. He was in a deep coma for 3 years, a vegetable with no hope of recovery. But then, against every law of science, he simply woke up. It was a miracle even he couldn't explain, and that one moment sparked his lifelong obsession with cheating death. It turns out there was a scientific anomaly behind Wu Jiao's survival. Doctors discovered a bizarre mutation in his blood after the crash, something that literally pulled him back from the brink of death. But this miracle came with a price. Agonizing, chronic migraines that never let up. Using his own medical genius, Wu Jiao began experimenting on his own broken body, and the results were beyond anything he could have imagined. Even though it sounds like a total fairy tale, Han Jun is officially a believer. He can't deny it because he's seen the physical proof of Wu Jiao's miracles with his own eyes. But time is running out. Outside, the public is out for blood, protesting in the streets and demanding that the court hand down a death sentence. Han Jun is now fighting a lonely battle against the truth, desperately trying to buy enough time for Wu Jiao to save his daughter. But the odds are stacked against them. With 17 confirmed victims, the world sees Wu Jiao as nothing more than a bloodthirsty psychopath who needs to be eliminated. To make matters worse, Prosecutor Yun is proving to be a nightmare for the defense. She's armed to the teeth with evidence, arguing that Wu Jiao didn't just experiment. He went on a sadistic revenge spree, targeting the very person who caused his car accident. Yun has done her homework, and she's laying out every gruesome detail. She presents crime scene photos so horrific that they leave the entire courtroom sickened and gasping for air. But then, in the middle of this nightmare, Wu Jiao does the unthinkable. He starts laughing. This cold-blooded reaction sends the gallery into a blind rage. His arrogance is absolutely nauseating. Things are looking grim for Han Jun. With the entire country screaming for an execution, he makes a desperate plea to the judge. Let Wu Jiao demonstrate his miracle cure right here in court to prove his worth to the public. As it turns out, this was Wu Jiao's master plan from the very beginning, to corrupt Han Jun and force him into a position where he has to protect a monster. Han Jun is reaching his breaking point. Every time he tries to get a straight answer, Wu Jiao just plays mind games, refusing to admit or deny the murders. His logic is chilling. How can they execute a man who holds the cure for every terminal illness? He constantly uses Han Jun's daughter as leverage, twisting the knife in the father's heart every chance he gets. Even though he has no idea what's actually going on inside that cold-blooded killer's head, Han Jun is in too deep to quit now. He's willing to sacrifice everything. His reputation, his morals, his soul, just to save his bedridden daughter. He officially walks away from his prestigious career, trading his high-end life for a filthy, trash-filled room that his reporter friend found to serve as a makeshift office. To save the doctor, Han Jun asks the reporter to plant a story to manipulate public opinion and distract everyone from the murder charges. This media circus has Yun's superiors shaking in their boots, but she doesn't back down for a second. She's confident she can bury this case and see justice served. However, the situation takes a tragic turn at home. Little Minseo's condition is spiraling out of control. Her heart rate is dropping to almost zero while she lies in her coma. Han Jun rushes home, desperate and panicked. He sees his wife, who is completely drained after years of tireless care, and he knows he has to find another way. He's ready to risk it all on Wu Jiao's cure, but his wife is terrified. Minseo is so small and so fragile. She's not ready to be a guinea pig, and her mother isn't willing to gamble with her life. Seeing his wife and child suffering to the point of total exhaustion pushes Han Jun to find a solution as fast as humanly possible. He spends his days tracking down every single patient Wu Jiao ever cured, begging them to take the stand and testify. But it's a total dead end. Not a single person wants to show up, fearing the social stigma of being saved by a cold-blooded killer. Talk about ungrateful cowards. When Wu Jiao hears about this from behind bars, he just gives a bitter, cynical laugh. All those people who once begged him for a miracle now won't even give their benefactor the time of day. To provide Han Jun with the evidence he needs, Wu Jiao mentions a secret journal, a red notebook where he recorded every single step of his experimental process. With no other choice, Han Jun has to return to the nightmare fuel that is Wu Jiao's blood-stained laboratory. He tears the place apart, scavenging through the mess, but there's no sign of the red notebook anywhere. However, while digging through the files, he accidentally stumbles upon a folder containing experimental test results for the exact same illness that's killing his daughter, Minseo. But just as he's getting absorbed in the data, he realizes someone is lurking outside the door. The intruder catches Han Jun's eye and immediately bolts, forcing the lawyer to give chase. Now, let's be real, this kind of high-speed pursuit isn't exactly a great fit for an aging lawyer. Luckily, Han Jun knows the layout and uses a shortcut to tackle the guy. But the big reveal is a total letdown. It's just some punk kid filming a bravery challenge vlog at a famous murder site. This doesn't help his case at all. In fact, Han Jun's day gets even worse when he gets a panicked call from his reporter friend. Han Jun, the inspectors are here. They're kicking down the door to search my office. They're saying my article is nothing but slander. Han-jun floors it back to the office, arriving just as the inspectors are trashing the place. Since they're armed with a search warrant, they have zero respect for him. But Han-jun isn't going down without a fight. He draws a line in the sand, pointing to his specific area and barking, "This is my workspace. You touch a single thing in here, and I will sue you into the ground." Faced with the sheer authority of such a legendary lawyer, the inspectors actually back off, too intimidated to touch his stuff. As it turns out, this entire raid was orchestrated by Yun. She's the daughter of a powerhouse prosecutor and, get this, she was once Han-jun's top student. He reflects on her background, admitting that while he taught his students to be the smartest, he also accidentally taught them to be the most stubborn. It's a classic student versus teacher showdown now that Yun is brazen enough to take on her own mentor, while Han-jun and the reporter are sitting around, sighing over how impossible this case is becoming. A woman named Min Jae-young suddenly walks in. It turns out the reporter called this beautiful woman in for backup. Min Jae-young is only there because she wants to follow in Han-jun's footsteps. Ever since he left the firm, she's been stuck doing nothing but miserable paperwork. Luckily, Min Jae-young's arrival gives the reporter a brilliant idea. Why not use her charm and good looks to persuade the witnesses to come forward? Min Jae-young is all for it, confidently bragging about her silver tongue. Han-jun doesn't want to drag anyone else into this mess, but he's completely powerless against her pleading eyes. And just like that, their two-man office gets a much-needed rose to brighten things up. And just as she promised, Min Jae-young doesn't let Han-jun down. She manages to convince Sang-woo's mother to testify with almost zero effort. But just when they think they finally have a lead, a massive twist hits them. It turns out every single witness has received a personal letter, sent directly from Woo Jae-oh while he was still sitting in his prison cell. Just when it looked like the defense was gaining ground, a massive bombshell dropped. It turns out that Woo Jae-oh, even from behind bars, sent threatening letters to his former patients. He warned them that if they testified, he would expose their identities to the public. These people are terrified. They don't want the world to know they were cured by a serial killer, fearing they'll be social outcasts forever. Furious at the chaos, Han-jun takes full control, declaring, "From here on out, absolutely everything regarding this trial goes through me first." Han-jun was so close to a breakthrough, only for Woo Jae-oh to throw a wrench into the gears. Luckily, Min Jae-young uses her charm and persistence to talk the key witnesses off the ledge. She successfully convinces them to take the stand after all. The witness list is impressive. A man whose blood cancer was supposedly cured, and Sang-woo, the boy who went from being paralyzed to running around a soccer field. The team spends the entire night in a high-stakes war room session, meticulously prepping for the next day in court. When the trial resumes, Sang-woo's mother takes the stand. Her voice trembles as she describes the miracle. "Woo Jae-oh gave my son one injection. When he woke up, he let out a loud cry, and suddenly, he could move." Seeing the boy healthy and vibrant makes the story feel undeniably real. But Prosecutor Yun isn't just going to sit there and let them win. She's a shark. She immediately attacks the original medical records, questioning if the boy was ever actually paralyzed to begin with. She brings in an expert medical witness who testifies that doctors often just follow the initial diagnosis without double-checking it. Her argument? Sang-woo's paralysis was likely temporary and would have healed on its own. It's a devastating blow. The gallery starts to believe her, and people begin to walk out of the courtroom in disgust. Now, all the pressure is on the second witness, the cancer survivor. But for some reason, the guy is huddled in his seat, trembling and refusing to speak. Han-jun watches in horror as his case falls apart. Finally, the man finds the courage to speak, but it's not what Han-jun expected. "I'm not cured," he stammers. "I'm still undergoing treatment at the hospital." This statement is the nail in the coffin. It makes Woo Jae-oh look like a total fraud and a cold-blooded murderer who played with people's lives. We don't know if Yun had a hand in this witness's sudden change of heart, but she flashes a triumphant, smug smile that leaves Han-jun speechless. After the hearing, Han-jun chases the witness down to get the truth, but the man just offers a weak excuse and disappears. Losing this round means Han-jun has to face a very angry Woo Jae-oh. The irony is insane. Woo Jae-oh is the one who sent the threatening letters that scared the witnesses, yet he has the nerve to slam the table and scream at Han-jun for being incompetent. However, the plot takes one final, twisted turn. After observing the witness's interaction with Han-jun, Yun goes to talk to him again and realizes something chilling. She remembers a specific warning Woo Jae-oh once gave her. "Don't let the patients undergo any other treatments, or my method will fail." It turns out the cancer patient had been cured, but out of fear, he had gone back to a traditional hospital for more treatment. Just as Woo Jae-oh predicted, those standard medical procedures interfered with his miracle, causing the cancer to come screaming back. Woo Jae-oh and Han-jun are finally sitting down, mapping out a strategy that works for both of them. Wu Jiao's proposal is simple. They need to move toward a single goal. To do that, he wants to perform a formal medical demonstration using his old patient files to prove his miracle cure is the real deal. Han Jun knows this is a massive long shot, but Wu Jiao's sheer madness is infectious. The guy is so incredibly confident that he already has the cure ready to go that Han Jun finds himself genuinely fired up to defend this mad doctor. Meanwhile, news of the trial is plastered across every television screen in the country. The high-profile nature of the case has Wu Qiol feeling uneasy. He's starting to wonder if hitching his wagon to Yun is going to pull him into a world of trouble. When he asks about Yun's background, their colleague Min Jiang can only offer scraps of info from social media. Basically, that she's a beautiful, high flyer with an air of mystery. The next day, Yun's past catches up with her. She runs into the one person she's been actively dodging, her father. They hop into a car to have a private conversation, and the tension is thick. He immediately lays into her for avoiding his calls. As they argue, the truth comes out. Yun isn't just some random prosecutor. She comes from an incredibly powerful and wealthy family. Her father is there for one reason, to force her to quit the law and join the family business. But Yun is standing her ground. She flatly refuses his offer, choosing her own path over her father's empire. That night, Han Jun heads to the hospital to show professional doctors the medical records of patients Wu Jiao previously treated. He needs the money to fund his daughter's procedures, so he approaches the meeting with nothing but good intentions. However, the medical staff aren't having it. They warn him not to put his faith in the ramblings of a lunatic like Wu Jiao. But Han Jun, fueled by his own eyes and the image of the boy Wu Jiao cured, starts a shouting match with the doctors to defend his position. He argues that Wu Jiao has a legitimate ability to save people, which only leads to the doctor cursing him out and storming out of the room. Meanwhile, over at her office, Yun is watching a live news broadcast featuring Representative Beck. Everything is going exactly according to her plan. Knowing the politician has an election coming up, she used her connections to act as his secret advisor, pushing him to demand the death penalty for Wu Jiao. As she watches Beck rally the public for an execution, she's ecstatic. In her mind, if she gets that death sentence, her victory in this case is 100% guaranteed. Han Jun is also watching the broadcast, and the politician actually calls him out by name. Beck mocks him for constantly talking about Wu Jiao's supernatural healing powers. Han Jun is fuming, but he swallows his pride. The hope that his daughter might be cured is the only thing that keeps him from walking away. The televised speech is a massive hit with the public, and the politician is riding high on the positive ratings. To celebrate, he invites Yun and Police Chief Pyo to an intimate dinner as a thank you. But as soon as the food arrives, the politician gets a call and has to step out. Left alone with Chief Pyo, Yun drops the polite act. She bluntly criticizes the broadcast, telling him that the death penalty isn't a joke. She accuses the media team and the police chief of chasing likes and views, while she's the only one taking the pursuit of justice seriously. The politician returns, and the conversation turns nasty. He mocks the fact that a mess like Han Jun is even standing for the defense. The dinner ends in a flurry of insults and high-stakes tension. Thankfully, the politician returns to the table just in time to keep Yun and Chief Pyo from tearing each other apart. With the tension cooled for a moment, we cut to Han Jun and his team. They've pulled an all-nighter, performing a deep-dive analysis into every corner of the case. After connecting the dots, they finally stumble upon a game-changing argument that could flip the entire trial on its head. In no time, the information Han Jun leaked hits the airwaves. A news anchor presents a shocking new theory. Is Wu Jiao really a cold-blooded killer? Or is he actually the primary victim of a much larger conspiracy? Watching the broadcast, Yun is baffled. She can't believe how Han Jun's team managed to spin such a perfect, alternate reality. As the next court date approaches, the atmosphere is toxic. An angry mob has gathered outside the courthouse, protesting with a vengeance. In their minds, Wu Jiao is a monster who deserves nothing less than the death penalty, and they're screaming for Han Jun to strip off his lawyer's robes and quit. Inside, as soon as the judge gavels the session to order, Han Jun is on his feet. He requests permission to submit new evidence. Yun immediately objects, trying to shut him down, but Han Jun isn't a rookie. He uses his decades of experience to outmaneuver her, citing specific legal statutes that protect a defendant's right to a fair trial. Once he wins the floor, Han Jun drops 3 bombshells. First, he presents research from a prestigious medical group that Wu Jiao worked with. It turns out that back in his student days, the group highly valued Wu Jiao's blood-related research, viewing it as a revolutionary project. Second, he drops a truth bomb about the victims. He presents a thick dossier of criminal records, proving that every single person Wu Jiao killed was a violent criminal who had exploited legal loopholes to stay on the streets. This wasn't just murder. it was vigilante justice. As the courtroom reels from these two revelations, Iyun tries to regain control, arguing that regardless of their pasts, not one person has actually been proven cured by Wu Jiao. That's when Hanjun plays his ace of spades. He boldly offers to submit Wu Jiao's actual treatment methodology for the court to review. To have this much confidence, Hanjun had previously grilled Wu Jiao in private. Only after confirming that the cure was real did he decide to stake everything on it. When the judge asks if the treatment involves human blood, Hanjun confirms it. Specifically, mutated blood cells harvested from Wu Jiao's own body. The courtroom falls into a stunned silence. It sounds like science fiction, but Hanjun is dead serious. He and his team have had the method vetted by multiple labs, and the results are unanimous. Wu Jiao's mutated cell cultivation is scientifically viable. Hanjun closes his argument with a final, desperate plea. Give Wu Jiao one chance to prove his medical genius in a controlled environment. As he exits the courthouse, Hanjun is instantly swarmed by a sea of reporters. They're all shouting the same question. Is this for real? Armed with absolute faith in Wu Jiao, Hanjun makes a career-ending bet on camera. He declares that if the defendant's claims are proven false, he will personally resign and never practice law again. Inside the holding cell, Wu Jiao is ecstatic. The plan is working perfectly, but they aren't out of the woods yet. There's one massive problem looming over them. The ancient notebook containing Wu Jiao's secret formulas is still missing. After putting their heads together, Hanjun and Wu Jiao come to a chilling realization. The police likely have the missing notebook. If that's true, it means Iyun has been sitting on the evidence this entire time. Following a high-pressure press conference, Iyun meets with her superior to discuss the case. To her surprise, even her boss is starting to waver, questioning if there's a real possibility that Wu Jiao's cure actually works. This triggers a flashback for Iyun, taking her back to the night she arrested him. She remembers barging in while he was mid-procedure. Wu Jiao had screamed a warning that stopping the surgery then would mean certain death for the patient. But the police didn't care. They dragged him away, and the patient died exactly as he predicted. Later, Iyun debates the ethics of the arrest with her partner, Wu Chiol. He's a by-the-book guy and stands firmly by their actions, dismissing the idea of a secret cure as total nonsense. They've already committed to this path, and there's no turning back now. But Iyun is restless. She scrubs through the CCTV footage from the night of the raid over and over until she spots something massive. It looks like Wu Jiao wasn't a lone wolf. A suspected accomplice was helping him with his experiments. Seizing the momentum, Iyun orders a full printout of every contact in Wu Jiao's diary and secures every second of footage within the vicinity of his factory. This is the smoking gun she needs for the final hearing. On the other side of the fence, Hanjun's team is riding high. Their theories and analyses have gone viral, racking up views and engagement across social media. However, the missing notebook is a dark cloud hanging over their victory. Hanjun retraces the timeline and identifies a key player, Professor Han, the doctor who treated Wu Jiao after his near-fatal car accident. Hanjun meets the professor and lays it all out. The mutated blood, the miracle cures, the hope for his daughter. But the professor shuts him down with cold, clinical efficiency. To him, the idea that Wu Jiao's blood can cure terminal illness is a total lie with zero scientific basis. It's a devastating blow. Hanjun leaves the meeting feeling like he's been doused in ice water, his conviction finally starting to crack. Meanwhile, Iyun receives her own medical report confirming exactly what the professor said. There is no scientific evidence to support Wu Jiao's claims. Armed with this truth, she walks into the courtroom with absolute confidence. She formally moves to block Wu Jiao's medical demonstration and demands the ultimate penalty, the death sentence. Hanjun refuses to go down without a fight. He stands up and delivers a powerful plea for humanity, accusing the prosecution of intentionally ignoring the potential medical breakthroughs of the case. He begs the court for a lighter sentence and a chance for a medical tribunal to evaluate the findings before making a final decision on Wu Jiao's life. Then comes the moment of truth. The judge delivers the final verdict. The court acknowledges that while Wu Jiao's mutated blood claims lack scientific backing, the nature of his actions, however twisted, seem to stem from a desire to cure people. Iyun and her team wait with bated breath, but their hearts sink as they realize their solid legal arguments weren't enough to stop the chaos. However, the final hammer falls with a heavy blow. Despite the talk of medical intent, the court ruled that the human cost was too high. The request for a medical demonstration is officially denied. The judge looks Wu Jiao in the eye and hands down the highest possible punishment, the death penalty. The judge drops the hammer, delivering a final verdict that sends the courtroom into a frenzy of cheers and applause. Everyone is celebrating. Everyone except Hanjun, who looks absolutely devastated. After the session, he waits behind, desperate for one last word with the judge. But the woman is hard-headed. She stands firmly by her decision, insisting that no matter his talents, Woo Jiao is nothing more than a murderer. Han-jun loses his cool, shouting at her to think about the terminally ill children whose only hope just got snatched away. But the judge doesn't care about medical breakthroughs. To her, a killer is a killer. However, this was only the first trial. Han-jun knows there's still a slim window to save Woo Jiao, which means there's zero time for rest. While the higher-ups are busy popping champagne, Yi-yun heads back to the scene of the crime. Just as she suspected, the internet is already on fire. Viral posts about Woo Jiao's miracle cure are everywhere, and netizens have even launched a massive survey to see if the public believes he can actually cure the incurable. This is all part of the master plan Han-jun and Woo Jiao cooked up together. But Han-jun isn't a fool. He knows public opinion might not be enough to sway a court of law. He tells Woo Jiao they need a plan B. Everything Han-jun is doing, every moral boundary he's crossing, is a desperate trade for his daughter's life. After a grueling day, Han-jun finally collapses onto a chair just to catch his breath. His only solace is a short phone call to his daughter, Min-seo. Deep down, he's terrified. He doesn't even know if he can trust Woo Jiao's promises. But with a 99% chance that his daughter's illness will be fatal, Han-jun is willing to bet everything on that 1% chance that the mad doctor is telling the truth. Meanwhile, Yi-yun's investigation into the murder takes a major turn. She discovers that one of the victims was actually a member of the same research institute where Woo Jiao used to work. Remembering that Han-jun mentioned this lab in court, she heads there the very next day. The place is a ghost town, looking abandoned for years. But as she explores the dusty halls, she realizes she's not alone. A shadowy figure is tailing her. Yi-yun's instincts kick in. She remembers this building only has 4 floors, and the man who just walked past her had no reason to be there. She gives chase, but the intruder fights back with vicious intensity, wounding her in the arm. Before she can recover, the man pulls a daredevil move, jumping from a high ledge to the ground and vanishing into the night. But the real horror is happening back at the prison. Because of the high-profile nature of his case, Woo Jiao is tossed into a general population cell filled with hardened thugs. One of them, it turns out, was close to one of Woo Jiao's victims. That night, they wait until they think he's fast asleep before creeping toward his bunk. They're armed only with sharpened pens, but in a confined space with numbers on their side. Those pens are lethal weapons. They swarm him, pinning him to the floor. Woo Jiao manages to hold his own for a moment. He's got some moves, but he's completely outnumbered. In the chaos, one of the thugs lunges forward, driving a pen deep into Woo Jiao's chest. The thugs are so clumsy that in the heat of the brawl, they actually start hitting their own guys. Woo Jiao sees his opening and slips through the circle of attackers. But instead of fighting back, he does something insane. He grabs a pen, stabs it into the wall, and collapses on the floor. He's rushed to the infirmary, where doctors work frantically to save him. When he finally wakes up, he grabs the doctor's hand and begs for help. As it turns out, this entire riot was part of a master plan cooked up by Han-jun. The lawyer had actually arranged for those specific inmates to be in that cell, giving Woo Jiao total control over how the scene played out. When Han-jun arrives at the prison, the doctor delivers some earth-shattering news. Even though Woo Jiao was bleeding out, he supposedly drew his own blood and performed a transfusion on another inmate. The result? The inmate's wounds, and even a severe case of peritonitis, healed instantly. It sounds like science fiction, but the doctor saw it with his own eyes. This is exactly the proof they needed. Later, Han-jun meets with Yi-yun and her boss for a high-stakes showdown. The boss tries to play hardball, announcing that they are scrapping the medical demonstration and advising Han-jun to find a different defense. Yi-yun is practically glowing with smug satisfaction. But Han-jun isn't done. He slides a newspaper article across the table about the prison miracle. The second they see the headline, Yi-yun and the director are frozen. Yi-yun is absolutely fuming. She's been trying to send this guy to the gallows, but he keeps slipping through her fingers like a ghost. But the shocks don't stop there. Shortly after the meeting, Yi-yun is stunned to learn that the medical demonstration has been fast-tracked and approved with zero resistance. It turns out Professor Han has arrived at the hospital, and his endorsement was the magic key that got the demo approved. Yi-yun rushes to check the list, and there it is. Professor Han is officially on the case. She tracks down Chief Pyo to get the inside scoop, and he drops a dark secret. When Woo Jiao was in his 3-year coma, Professor Han didn't just treat him, he used him as a human lab rat. Pyo gives Yi-yun a chilling warning. Don't dig too deep into this, or you're going to be the one who gets hurt. Meanwhile, Han-jun grills Woo Jiao about his relationship with the professor. Woo Jiao confirms that the professor was the one who treated him after the accident. Han-jun explains that the professor is the missing link, the the key witness who can validate his miracle blood in court and make the medical demonstration happen. Despite the high stakes, Wu Jiao remains eerily calm. He tells Han Jun to stop worrying and go buy a gift for his daughter. On his way out, Han Jun runs into Yun. She gives him a sarcastic congratulations on getting the demonstration approved. They have a rare, honest moment where Han Jun admits the truth. He is standing by a monster solely because of his daughter. He tells her that if he fails, he will resign and walk away from everything. He even leaves her with a wild challenge. If things don't go as planned and I've misled everyone, you can punch me in the face right in front of the entire court. Han Jun's words weren't just a promise. They were an absolute, unshakable vow. Soon after, a high-level meeting is convened to select the lucky patient who will undergo Wu Jiao's experimental procedure. This is the moment, a massive turning point for modern medicine and the only chance Han Jun has to save his daughter, Minxiu. He refuses to leave, pacing outside the room for hours, waiting for the verdict. He's praying with everything he has that Minxiu will be the one selected. But life isn't a fairy tale. When the meeting finally adjourns, Han Jun has to make the hardest phone call of his life. He tells his wife that Minxiu wasn't picked. The board chose a different little girl for the trial. Even though he's crushed, Han Jun knows he has to keep it together. He realizes that if Wu Jiao can save this girl, it proves the cure is real, and Minxiu will be next in line. The following day, the monster doctor is escorted by a heavy police detail to the hospital. This is the stage where he will prove his genius to the world. He strips off his prison jumpsuit, slides into a white lab coat, and walks into the operating room with terrifying confidence. The air in the room is thick with tension. Every doctor and observer is holding their breath, their minds filled with skepticism, yet unable to look away from the man they called a psychopath. The surgery is over in the blink of an eye. Everything went perfectly without a single complication. But then, Wu Jiao drops a bombshell. He declares that the patient will be fully recovered within exactly 24 hours. The clock starts ticking. From Han Jun to the girl's terrified family, everyone is counting down every second, paralyzed by a mix of hope and fear. Meanwhile, Yun is still playing detective. Her team sends over a forensic analysis of the residue found on the pipes in that mysterious abandoned building. As she connects the dots between Chief Pyo's warnings and the director's shady behavior, a chilling realization hits her. There is a massive, dark secret being hidden right under her nose, and she's determined to dig it up. Fast forward 24 hours, and the miracle actually happens. The little girl opens her eyes and wakes up from her coma. Her family is overwhelmed with emotion, crying tears of pure joy. It turns out that everything Wu Jiao claimed was 100% true. The very thing the medical establishment called unscientific and impossible just saved a life. Back in his prison cell, Wu Jiao hears the news and lets out a manic, terrifying grin. In his twisted mind, he finally feels like a god, a superhero who can conquer death and cure the incurable. But the victory might be short-lived. Back at Han Jun's office, a surprise visitor appears, the chairman of the medical center. It looks like the powerful elite are moving in to squash Wu Jiao's miracle before it can truly change the world.